activities for children have moved beyond just fun and games and cater to a holistic development of the child. Better communication, cognitive functions, physical agility, emotional strength, creative imagination, and social skills are some of the key benefits to creating value-based kids' learning activities. Learning through playing promotes healthy habits by actively engaging children in the world around them. These activities also engage the parents and create a positive and interactive environment. With lockdowns and imposed mobility restrictions, the very mental health of children can get affected. Creating a kid-friendly environment to learn how to interact with others and develop critical lifelong skills can encourage problem-solving skills as well. Sisters Anusha and Geisha, with a vision to inspire kids through art, founded the Talking Canvas in 2018. The name The Talking Canvas was coined as they were giving kids a canvas to express their creativity. Anusha is a corporate powerhouse with over a decade of management experience with companies such as TCS and Wipro. In 2018, Anusha put behind her corporate experience and plunged into the world of entrepreneurship with a vision to enhance and showcase creativity in kids. She has extensively traveled across the world on various assignments and had a steep career trajectory at the company she worked with. From a young age, art was a passion for her, and she noticed the benefits art and creativity offered at the corporate workplace and the lack of. Thank you, Anusha, so much for joining us for this episode of Threading Thoughts, and we're really excited you were able to spend some time with us.
Thank you for having me here. Really looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. Anusha, I wanted to start off with asking, as a woman entrepreneur and as a new business owner, what new business processes can small businesses incorporate, other than relying on aggregators or other platforms that are available? What are some of the lessons perhaps that you learned this year that you think should be taken forward?
Yeah, I think, relying on aggregators and marketplaces is great to start with, right? I mean, because it sort of gives you that confidence that your products can sell and you're not really looking for the customers yourselves. There is already an established customer base. However, I think as you grow, you need to look at different models to work with, right? Like even when we started with the marketplaces, in fact, we used to do a lot of offline exhibitions because that used to give us direct customer feedback then and there, and it sort of gives you a lot of confidence that there is something in your product which the customers like, and then you can sort of move them back to your website or your online
True,
sales.
true.
It worked out pretty well for us in our early stages to get that kind of feedback as well as build a customer base. But however, for new customers, marketplaces and all are still important. I think you can't really not rely on it. However, for us to really expand our own customer base, it becomes important to ensure that there is good SEO, good organic marketing happening one way or the other. So I think for small businesses, being out there, putting yourself out there, is very important as an entrepreneur. And that itself gives you a lot of traction, I mean, whether it is on social media or LinkedIn. I mean, when I say social media, I mean like Facebook and Instagram and those kind of platforms.
Right.
And I think it's also important to stay relevant depending on the target audience. So for a younger customer base, like if you're targeting, 18-year-olds or 25-year-old, that age group, then maybe Instagram or, Snapchat or, whatever those right
Whichever works,
platforms.
the platform that connects with them.
Absolutely. However, Facebook is still possibly relevant for the slightly older demographic. So I think it's important to know where your customers are and then sort of figure out ways and means to get there. And it's not easy at all today because you have to look at when your digital footprint is what is being counted, right? It's so many things, right? You have to look at blogs, you have to look at what you're doing right now, podcasts or whatever, like any way that you can to reach out to your customers. So that becomes very important. And how do you continue to engage with them? That's also another very, very important thing. So you need to incorporate all of these different things into your processes. It can't be a one-off thing. You need to figure out how your mailers are going out frequently, and we are still learning a lot of these things, to be honest, because it's not easy when you're a small team to pull off every one of these aspects.
True.
So you just have to keep adding and trying to build that consistency into it, and continue to do that. So I think customer engagement, customer retention, whatever ways, right? Lead generation, all these things have to be, these are processes you have to build into your systems. Otherwise, it becomes difficult. So we've recently introduced a chatbot, which is helping us on the website, right? Like getting us some leads and stuff like that. Then we're able to send them more details about the brand later. So all of these things, I think you just keep learning and you just keep adding to it.
True. I mean, it's a never-ending journey because every time you sort of think that you understand something, there's this curveball, and then you work around it, or you learn
That's
how to manage it. And especially now that we've all sort of gone online, I think the demand is
absolutely.
more for retention, and even catching somebody's eye is quite difficult.
It's difficult. It's extremely difficult. And even if you have a great product, and people love your product, it's still very difficult to reach out to new customers, to keep adding to your customer base. And even to retain your existing customers, because even your customers are seeing more and more, right? So how many do they really buy from? So then it is difficult, but I think it also provides an opportunity. This, I think now it's easier, in fact, like you're not spending huge amounts on branding, right? I mean, I'm sure in the past, even printing a paper ad and whatever would have been much more expensive.
Absolutely.
um, yeah. So I think with the online coming in so much and people being open to it, especially after the lockdown, I think everybody saw increase in sales to a large extent. There was a
Right.
lot of pent up demand, and more people willing to buy online. So it sort of triggered that as well, that kind of increase. So for small brands to survive, if you do the right things early on and just sustain for a year or two somehow, I think it gets easier as you go along.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that is at least initially it is such a big toothing problem.
Right.
Just getting your feet wet and trying to understand the different things, because most of us don't come into any entrepreneurial activity with a huge background of entrepreneurship. It's usually this whim that gets you in, and then it's just the love for what you're doing, right? That's all
Right.
that
You can
sustains you.
be a dreamer, but you need to get started somewhere and then persist with it. Otherwise, it's difficult. Yes.
No, absolutely. And so, talking about the digital age, actually, so how can you keep children engaged and educated at the same time? So it's more, how do you also foresee online activities to provide a lot of adequate training? It's not just games and fun, but you want it to
Right.
be an edutainment most of the time. It's where you
Yeah.
want to go. So how do you see that happening?
Yeah, I think play-based learning is the best way to teach kids in any way, right? It's very important at a young age, and I think all of us have done it in different ways. But sometimes you don't correlate it to learning at all. There are
Right.
a lot of skills that you end up learning. Like in India, for example, when we were kids, also I'm sure that a lot of our parents didn't really want to buy us toys because it was more like it's a waste of time and effort and money and everything, right? To go get it, to give it to them, and then it just uses for a couple of times and then throw it
And
away
then
kind
it's
of thing.
just stored somewhere. Yeah.
Right. However, I think now parents are beginning to understand that it's not really just about using it and throwing it around, but there's a lot of learning that's happening through that whole play itself, right? So there is more understanding of education related toys. And so I mean, what I mean is that even if you are using a do it yourself activity kit and, painting with it and coloring with it, there's so much learning happening through that. So it's very important that more and more parents sort of know it, and there are newer parents who are now understanding the benefits of that as well. And I think online provides, I mean, it's a two-edged sword, right? So there are good things about it, of course, a lot of positives about it, and then it depends on too much of anything is a problem, right? So I think it's that balance of how do you balance it out is the question. So I think there are a lot of companies providing really good content for kids online, as well as education related toys offline as well. I think it'll be great to see a mix of both. And that's where we are also looking at how do we sort of provide a mix of both, because online helps you reach more kids or
Right.
parents of course. And it also gets you to people who would not have had that opportunity if you had a offline space, for example. They may not have had that opportunity because you're not going to open so many offline spaces necessarily and all of that, right? So it gives you that opportunity to go to them far easier, and they also get to access your content far easier. But also, I think instead of just making it, I mean, what I mean is that just having a Zoom call and having a session online does not make it online learning so much. It's just the same thing where you're just listening to somebody. But
Absolutely.
if it can be, a mix of demonstration, actually hands-on learning, I think it makes it far more interesting, and that's what we are trying to do through our art kits. So
It's
they
the
can
engagement, right? You're trying to engage them rather than just make them sit and listen to what you're doing. Or
exactly. So because exploration, all of that is very important in kids. They are curious about it. How do I do it? How do I fix this? So just letting them do those things is far more learning than actually just sitting and listening to something, right? Uh,
absolutely.
so that's where I think a lot of newer companies are trying to come in and help as well, because I think schools themselves may not be able to do all of these things. So I think it's important that extracurricular activities possibly provide that gap, which the education system is not really able to provide.
And also, I'm a very strong believer of getting arts into mainstream.
Yes,
Because I
absolutely.
think that the learning that comes from different kinds of art, be it visual, performing, or any other kind of art, teaches you a lot and helps you learn a lot more about the subject as well, whichever subject
Absolutely.
or stream that you wish to explore. But sometimes what happens is. Uh, art always takes a backseat. It's not as important as it should be.
Yes.
I think it's also priorities and time frames and how much of energy that you can give into it. But bringing
Yeah.
sort of a game-based learning helps bring art into their lives, but also helps them to learn when they are enjoying themselves, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, the problem I think is because art has always been looked at as a hobby rather than
Absolutely.
skill-based learning, right? So therefore, it just gets reduced to that, to in the bigger scheme of things, right? Everything else is a must-have skill, whereas this is something that you just do as a
Yeah.
hobby. And that's the perception we are trying to change, because we do believe that art is very, very important from a creativity perspective. And it's one of the best ways, I think, to build that skill. For example, even trying to, I mean, explore your imagination, visualize what you have in your mind, and being able to bring it out on paper, right? These are things that's very, very essential for creativity. And kids starting young is always better, right? I mean, a lot of corporates are still struggling to figure out how do I make my employees creative, and they're looking at all
Absolutely.
sorts of
Absolutely. A little
looking at all
later on
sorts
the
of
curve, that's what happens.
yeah,
Much later.
absolutely. It's important that it starts early, and creativity is needed in every profession, right? Whether you're a doctor or an engineer or whatever you are, it is important that you are able to think on your feet, think differently. How do you break something, question, status quo, and figure out something, right? I think most of us are very good at incremental improvements or changes.
Right.
However, something that's totally different or out of the box is where we sort of struggle with. And we are just trying to figure out, can we, as a brand or as a company, figure out how do we get kids to think that way early on, like make it exciting for them, give them the resources and help them to do something that they have in their minds, and break that. Um, I mean, what I mean is that when you don't give a guidance as well, it's a problem. Like if you give a
Absolutely.
blank slate, also, they don't know what, it's too overwhelming, right?
And it's
What do
very
you do then?
rudderless, right? It's very rudderless. You don't know what to do
Correct.
or where to go. Yeah.
So we want to see how can we provide some bit of guidance, but not really give them everything. So it's not like, it's a template to color in,
Correct.
but it's more about giving you a few things and saying, now you have these three things. What can you sort of do with it, and how do you build something out of it? So that's something that we are looking at very strongly, and we hope that we are able to add more and more products which really excite kids. We've seen that in our current products as well, because they're different from what's out there. So parents and kids sort of like using it, and what I love about it, it's a family activity sometimes, and that's great as well, right? Because it builds so many social skills for kids.
Absolutely.
Uh, and it also molds the family, brings them together. It's something fun that they do together while the child learns so much. So that's the best part about it, I think. And if we can make more and more products like that, then that's the best way to uh, help kids to learn and help
Absolutely.
parents to
That's the
enjoy.
best value add you can actually give for any
Absolutely.
thing. And in fact, that's so true because that's what I was leading to next. There are a multitude of toys and activities for kids. And, so how do you build more socially relevant aids for learning, be it for a particular social cause or even for social networking, developing social skills? You can use it in different aspects, and that's something that you touched upon right now. But that's
Correct.
also something that we would like to hear more about because, especially thanks to COVID, at least some of us have spent more time with the kids. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. But also, unfortunately, thanks to COVID, we've also spent a lot of time on office work at non-office hours. So, you're just like working round the clock, even if it's your own journey. There is this boundary has been erased of where you can
Correct.
stop and move into something else because you're at one place all the time. So, where do you feel this as a more socially relevant learning aid?
Well, I think, building social skills in kids, there's multiple ways to do it, right? I mean, even having conversations, helping them to possibly express themselves, all of these things. And I think one thing that I think is becoming a bit of a hassle now is exactly that, because of, everyone being stuck at home and kids not being able to go out as much and all of that, right? Maybe the ones who are more extroverted, or the more open, they're still okay, because even if it's an
Right.
online class, they're able to somehow maybe interact and do all of that. And the ones who don't speak up so much, the kids, I think they will struggle a bit more with this. And
Absolutely.
know, I don't know if I have an answer to it, because even the social skills, social circle that they have is going to be very limited
True.
at this point, right? And I think the only way that I can, I'm thinking that hopefully all of this will be behind us soon, and kids can actually start going out and having those interactions. But we are also looking at, there are a lot of sessions happening, I think, with kids. A lot of different companies are trying to do it. A lot of smaller businesses are trying to do it, where they put a group of kids together and let them have fun and all of that. I'm not sure how much it helps, but I think to some extent it does give them that relief and expression and all of that. um, However, I think sadly, I know parents are doing a lot, but this is another thing they'll have to do, um,
But much
to
more
be.
enjoyable, much more enjoyable.
Absolutely, yeah. But to be able to connect with their kids far more, because I'm sure kids are bored as well, not going out as much. But sometimes boredom is okay. I mean,
Absolutely.
through boredom, they learn a lot of things as well. But I think some of us just panic when the child is bored, and, like
Or even if
we
it's
have
just sit
to.
still without doing anything,
Right.
an alarm goes off.
Correct. We have to do something to keep them entertained and all of that. But sometimes it's also about figuring out how can you use things around the house and let them just be. And some parents do that very well, I think. Let them just use, whether it's dough or whether it is simple things at home, just let them work with that and create things. So I think parents will have to pitch in and have those kind of communications to be socially this thing. But I think once things open up, maybe like we, for example, we are looking at how do we bring kids together to create things,
Right.
um, so that way also they sort of learn social skills and learn to share, learn to share ideas as well, learn to share their resources as well. So all of these things happen through play. So I think, in a sense, if they are able to meet and do this regularly, that's great. If they aren't able to, then I think parents will have to possibly work with their kids in the short run, at least.
I'm
That's all
sort
I
of,
can talk right now.
and no, that is reason enough, because I think that itself is such a huge bridging gap that we need right now. And sometimes we just need to wind down, and for parents
Correct.
themselves, not do anything. It's just like I'm sitting there with a completely blank slate, and I don't need to think about the next deadline or the next deliverable. That itself is a blessing, I think, more for the parents than the children.
I mean, it's simple things like, I remember just playing games as a family, whatever the game is, right? Whether you're playing a round of Uno or you're playing Pictionary or Monopoly or whatever. These are things that's great for kids to build those social skills as well, right? Some of them throw tantrums, some of them are okay with the loss, some are angry at the loss. But all of these are things that kids learn, right? Like how to move on from a loss sometimes. We've all gone through that, right? Throwing a
Yeah,
fit when.
absolutely, absolutely. And we
So
never
I
really
think
understood those were life lessons, by the way. We just thought it was like,
absolutely. And I think for parents as well, work life balance is something that has gone out the window in any case. There's nothing like that anymore, I think. So it's only about managing energies and how do you manage your energies, right? So
very
you
true.
may have to just put it down on your calendar, if that makes sense, saying that,
Yeah,
this particular time I'm only going to spend with my kids, or not really take any other meetings during that time. I think it's also difficult for some people to say no to things or push back. So they struggle more than the others. But I guess as a parent, you have more responsibilities as well. So you
exactly.
have to do it at some point, I guess.
Which brings me to a question I've been having on my mind. What triggered this journey for you? Because this resonates quite a bit with parents. So, uh,
Absolutely. Yeah, so it what triggered it for me was just the fact that I've always wanted to do something in the art and craft space, because that's something that I'm really passionate about. And I, as a kid, have really used, I think, art and craft in ways that made me better for it. It made me more independent, I guess. It made me more resourceful. It helped me come up with ideas which were different. Uh, so I guess, and I saw that in my corporate world, at least, I saw that there aren't too many people who are able to do that. And I'm thinking that, maybe it had something to do with the way they've grown up, what they've done, all of that, right? And I would like to provide kids that opportunity to just be able to create things, have that joy of, making your own things and using it or whatever. So I mean, having that sense of expression, that sense of pride that comes from making something your own, and others actually seeing it and appreciating it as well, right? And it's just I think it's just an experience that you go through, and it'll be great if parents and kids can also have that experience of uh, just making stuff and feeling that pride that comes with it.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
my journey started largely with that, but it wasn't easy at all, because when you've been in a corporate job for 13 years, getting a paycheck at the end of the month. I mean, all of us script about the paycheck not being enough and all of that, but
Yeah, I hear you, Anusha. I hear you.
but you still had one. So when you like decide to take a plunge, it's never easy, I think. And of course, there are so many challenges that come with it, right? Like how your family reacts to it. And in our Indian middle class setup, it becomes all the more difficult. But then I think once you've decided, I think once that bug has hit you, You just have to go through with it.
Exactly.
And after that, it's just perseverance and determination. I think there's nothing more to it more than that.
Well, once you start on the journey, it just takes you forward, no matter what the
Yes,
challenge is, right? I completely
absolutely.
hear you. Starting off something new when you are, going in a particular path is takes a little bit of strength,
Absolutely.
a lot of madness, but a little bit of strength, definitely.
I think lot of strength. It's not little bit at all. It's a lot of strength, especially early on, right? Like
Yeah,
you're trying to convince yourself you can do this. You're trying to convince others you can do this. So there's a lot of strength you need to have to go through with that.
no,
It's very
absolutely.
easy to give up at that stage, and very easy to feel rejected or lose motivation at that stage. So I think once you cross that, then then it's a question of you believe in yourself, then you have to just convince others.
Yeah,
uh,
that's true. I think it starts with that. But thank you so
right.
much, Anusha. It's just been so wonderful talking to you and hearing about the ways that we think we can bring education, awareness, and entertainment into through arts. And I think that really resonates with me because I do believe arts is a very strong teacher. We just have not tapped into the potential at all. And I just hope
Yeah.
moving forward a lot more people do that because it's a very gentle and a very, very effective teacher. So I hope we do a lot more with that. But thank you so much for taking time off.
For that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
spending
thank
it
you
with
so much,
us.
Radhila, for having me. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a very casual and good discussion.
Thank you so much. It's very nice of you.